I love his line of questioning. The Fitch and Moody's have quantified it. They've said that our lack of governing, our inability to come up with long-term solutions because of the dysfunction of our institution is a reason they have downgraded, which comes at a cost. So that's just one measure, but I appreciate your line of questioning. Now, for 5 minutes, our friend from Pennsylvania, Lloyd Smucker.
Thank you, Dr. Schwegel. Good to see you. Let me start by recognizing the importance of the work of CBO to inform our decisions that we're making for policy and for legislation. And I appreciate the work that CBO does. Also appreciate you've made yourself available, your staff available to me multiple times on a variety of topics, and I appreciate that as well. And I think one of the things I'd like to drill down on just a little is this $1 trillion miss, because the work of CBO is important. We rely on CBO, and I mean, wouldn't you agree a $1 trillion miss can reduce our confidence in CBO's projections?
I agree. It was an extraordinarily large miss.
Yeah, and it really, your projections really do have an impact on how we're thinking about legislation and so on. So this is important to understand what happened here. And I appreciate as well, you provided an explanation. It looks like about roughly 1/3 was due to actions taken by the administration after you did your projection, right? Roughly 1/3, right. About 300 some. So is that unusual?
I mean, it was an unusually large miss.
Well, I'm saying, is it unusual for the administration to take actions that are not authorized essentially by Congress?
It was unusual from our perspective. And,
yes.
You know, in some sense, we're trying to.
I mean, these were actions that you could not have been aware of, correct? Because they were done unilaterally by the administration outside of the authority of Congress.
That's correct.
So I think it's important we get that on the record. This was extraordinary activity by the president in spending what we would allege were he was unauthorized to do so, and this were outside of his authority. So that's number one. And then number two, I think about 1/3 of the projections where you just simply missed the economic projections.
That's right.
Why? Why would you have missed? I mean, that's a big miss. So can you tell us why you would have missed that in this particular time?
Yeah. So there's two pieces to it, and I'll talk about inflation, but the same thing applies to interest rates. And there, it's what you said. It's just a miss, and it affects the revenues and outlays. The economy was changing rapidly at the beginning of 2022 when we were doing our forecast. And our process is that we have to do the economics before we do the budget. You know, the analyst for unemployment insurance, she has to know, well, what's the unemployment rate going to be, 7 years from now? So we have to do the forecast early. And when the economy is changing quickly, as it was in early 2022, even 2 months,
Sure.
doing a forecast 2 months early. So it was a mix of those.
And I wish we had more time, but I don't. I want to go back to something the chairman said. It does appear that other organizations like Penn Wharton were closer and perhaps have been closer in previous years as well on their economic projections. Do you track that?
We do. So we make comparisons to others.
So can you provide us with your comparisons on a number of organizations? I don't know the answer to this. I would be interested in knowing how you've done over the past few years compared to some of the other organizations. Just share that with the committee if you don't mind. When you look at that and you find if they are more accurate, I don't know if you'd agree if they are not, do you look at your own model? Because there are obviously every organization is using different models. Do you think your model is still the best model after missing it by $1 trillion?
We do. We go back and look. When we miss, and on the inflation side, we went back and looked at, well, why did we miss? What did we miss? And our subsequent inflation forecasts have been not just much better, like really much better, like really spot on as inflation has come down over time. So we do go back and try to figure out, well, what do we need to improve?
Yeah. Have you made changes to your model after this year's $1 trillion difference?
We've, it's a in terms of the portfolio of models, we've made changes to, on the macro side, on the inflation side, again, in particular, where the miss was the biggest, we've made changes. We thought much more carefully about how the economy is changing as on the supply side, labor supply, supply chain disruptions, other things.
Again, I do appreciate your work. I've been asking some pointed questions. I just think it's really, really important that we all can continue to have confidence. So we appreciate your answers to these questions. Thank you.
I'm going to thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania and yield to our friend